This is James, one of the guys from the local trials club. He spent a large chunk of his childhood learning to ride trials, and by the time he was 15, was more or less riding at an A-grade level, despite being in the junior class. Of course, this didn't guarantee he wouldn't fall off occasionally, and there were signs he might like to try dirt riding eventually. Fast forward 2 years, and James has been getting into dirt riding more with a Yamaha WR450F. Definitely not the world's lightest dirt bike, but that doesn't seem to stop James from trying some technical riding with it. So I was very interested to ask James about his transition from trials to enduro. Usually it's the other way around, as happened with me. You spend years learning all sorts of bad habits on dirt bikes, and occasionally see the grace and style of trial riders, and think, that looks interesting. And of course, you think, trials won't be too hard. How much trouble can you get into with such a light bike? Then, finally you get your first ride on a trials bike and end up on your arse the moment you try a full lock turn. Those incredibly light trials bikes actually highlight all of your mistakes and bad riding habits. And that is the incredible aspect of trials. It develops a great sense of balance and forces you to become a better rider. And because everything happens at much lower speeds, you get more time to break down a technique such as log hopping and work it out. So, as many have discovered, trials helped me to develop better technique and less of a ham-fisted approach to riding, where you just apply heaps of throttle and momentum, then hope you manage to stay on the bike. But what happens when you've come purely from a trials background? James said it's been a tricky transition in some respects.
I forgot to turn the front wheel.
At first he would bring the WR into technical terrain very slowly.
Very deep rut through there.
Trying to pick the perfect line so he could ease through gently without putting a foot down. Naturally, this works well on a trials bike, but once the terrain gets very tough, then it's a bit like attempting brain surgery with a hammer. So James has moved more toward using speed and momentum, so the big dirt bike pushes through. It has also meant being more comfortable with sitting on the bike and paddling with the legs too, something trials riders avoid at all costs. We think Graham Jarvis set the benchmark for this. In difficult terrain, you will see him standing on the pegs and riding as far as possible without putting a foot down.
It's slippery!
Then he'll start paddling with the legs when it gets more difficult, and eventually sit on the bike and paddle with both legs when the shit really hits the fan. I always find it a pleasure to watch trials riders on dirt bikes. For starters, it's a lot quieter as they only use as many revs as needed. In fact, they can be deceptively fast in those higher gears, as they seem to naturally pick very smooth lines and use the terrain to best advantage on corners. You also aren't trying to avoid roost, as there is minimal wheel spin. A lot of guys have asked me, should I buy a trials bike? Which is like asking how long is a piece of string. Obviously, a trials bike makes it easier to learn more advanced techniques, and of course it will develop your sense of balance. But you can still learn many of the trial skills on a dirt bike. It's just some of them will be harder, that's all. My suggestion? The more you are focused on slow, hard technical riding and techniques, the more you will benefit from getting a trials bike and joining a local club. As for me, I had to sell my trials bike, as I'm still more of a caveman than most and need to evolve more. But maybe one day.